My whole goal has always been to support women in whatever way I can. And so through the erotic massage, I found a way to support women through touch and through affection and intimacy. Through rape crisis counseling, I found a way to support them through their healing process. And just really, I mean, that position, that job is really moving people away from crisis. It doesn't matter what the crisis is. The client is in a crisis state and just needs to not be in that state so that they can continue to live their life. So my work has always been in support of women.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. Have you ever felt like a man who's trying to touch you is only after one thing? Maybe he's just giving you a hug or rubbing you on the arm, but you know what that means. He wants to sleep with you, right? And maybe this isn't even a stranger. Maybe this is your boyfriend or your partner. He snuggles close to you on the sofa and you jerk back because, you're just not in the mood. Why do we automatically assume that any touch between a man and a woman is sexual in nature? And what does that do to our ability as women to receive affectionate, non-sexual physical contact from men? Those are tough questions, and it takes a pretty special person to be able to answer them. That's why I'm delighted to introduce you to our guest for today, Shaun Galanos. Shaun is a love coach and host of the Love Drive podcast. He's also a state-certified rape crisis counselor and a former erotic masseur. Shaun's mission is to spread love through emotional intimacy, and he believes that communication and vulnerability are the keys to a more loving and connected world. Welcome, Shaun.
Thank you. Gosh, that's a really nice introduction.
Well, I love your work. As I was telling you, I think your podcast is a wonderful resource, and I encourage everybody listening to check you out after this, because this is really important stuff. But where I want to begin is with your story, because your story, you've got one of the greatest personal stories. So now, could you very quickly tell us how the Love Drive got started?
The Love Drive started maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I found myself coming back from like a sabbatical from working in technology. And I was broke. I didn't know what to do. And I started driving a taxi in San Francisco. And driving a taxi is kind of fun until you get the hang of it and you realize it's not that interesting. And I'd always had this passion for talking to people about sex, love, and dating. And I got this idea to put cameras in the cab and interview my passengers about all sorts of stuff, related to their private life. And that's basically how the Love Drive started. It started as a YouTube channel, and I would interview people about, everything from why is it fun to have sex on your period, to should prostitution be legalized, to what's the deal with erotic massage. And I would just engage people on things that they don't normally talk to their cabbie about and that they don't normally talk about in front of a camera. And so that was version 1 of the Love Drive.
That is fantastic. And now it's a podcast, and people can see it on your site. But you talked about something there. So erotic massage. Now, I'm going to admit, I actually have never heard of it before. What is it?
Well, you have heard of it because you've probably heard of happy ending massage, which
Not
is
in America. Maybe I'm an innocent. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you need to get out of Oregon. If you go to a lot of major cities in the United States, you will find massage parlors that typically cater to a male audience. And these are massage parlors where you can get a happy ending massage. So basically a massage with some sort of release at the end. And you can find this all over the place, but generally you can't find it for people for a female clientele. Because it doesn't really exist. So there was no market for that type of service. But I also thought at some point, why is it that only men can go and get a happy ending massage? Why can't women get that as well?
That is amazing. So thinking about being a woman and the trust it takes even to get a massage, because first of all, we've got to take our clothes off, which is never comfortable in front of a stranger, but to then have erotic touch from somebody that we don't even know. How did that work for the women who were your clients?
Well, one thing that I want to say is that women are as sexually adventurous as men are. I just finished doing a podcast with Dr. Wednesday Martin, who wrote the book Untrue, and it's about female promiscuity and infidelity. And the studies show that women are sexually as adventurous as men are, and they cheat just as much as men do, if not more. It's just underreported. So women get as aroused at having sex with a stranger as men do. So that's one thing to keep in mind, right? It's possible to get aroused having sex with a stranger. The other piece is, in order for that to really happen, you need to feel safe. There has to be safety. And so, yeah, it's a little bit riskier for women to step out and experience these types of services, basically transactional type of services, because there needs to be an element of safety, and that's where I sort of came in and made sure that there was an element of safety being discussed. There was a lot of transparency. There was a lot of honesty and a lot of communication on the front end, which allows people to really drop their defenses and sort of sink into a treatment that could be exciting.
So I want to know more about that. What did you talk about? So I love this, first of all, because what we're talking about is communication before any sort of touch starts. And I think one of the challenges as women is sometimes we get touched out of nowhere by somebody that we don't feel like we have that close of a relationship with. So with your services, you actually sat down and talked with women before it began. What were those conversations like? Like, what did you, can you guide me through maybe one of those?
Well, it starts before that. It starts at the very first email. It starts. What I did was I built a website and I had 4 different pages of, this is what you can expect. This is the service, more or less. Here are some frequently answered questions. And then I invite you to contact me if this feels like a good fit for you. So right off the bat, you have a lot of transparency on the front end so that people know what they're getting themselves into. And then when the clients showed up, there was always a tea service, right? So we would sit down and we would talk about, what are your expectations for this treatment? What made you reach out and seek this sort of experience? Like, why are you wanting erotic touch in your life? Why do you want a sensual massage? And then I would describe sort of what a typical treatment would look like, what a massage would look like. And then I would ask you what your boundaries are, what kind of experience you're looking to get, what you would be. I would ask you to answer this question. I would be disappointed if, and then answer the question. So the goal is really over communicating on the front end, because it's the lack of transparency that makes people put up boundaries. When you don't know exactly what the person's intention is, then it becomes really cloudy and it becomes really hard to relax. And so I'd spend a lot of time just really making sure that they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. And then I would set up my own boundaries and say, I'm going to keep my clothes on. I'm only going to be using my hands. So they get a better idea of how the session is going to unfold.
What I can't help but think about is how that would change if that was the default standard for our sexual experiences with a new partner. Often there's a belief that talking about first time sex before having first time sex makes it less romantic, makes it less spontaneous, somehow drains some of the excitement out of it. But I don't know, on my end, I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm thinking, if we had those conversations, I could just imagine how much better first time sex would be for people.
I've had a lot of experience having first time sex with people, and I've used some form of this practice for a long time, of basically just communicating what my desires are and I do this practice called desires, fears, and boundaries with people. And so we will take turns expressing what our desires, fears, and boundaries are before we even get into the act of lovemaking or any sort of where any sort of touch is involved. So you know exactly what I'm interested in. I know what you're interested in. We can see where our overlap is. I understand. I can know where you don't want me to go or what you're not at all interested in. And what's really beautiful about this type of practice or this level of communication is that when you're with somebody who you know is going to trust your boundaries because you've expressed them and they've agreed to them, you can really relax. And an interesting part about all that is that when you're around somebody who respects your boundaries, some of those boundaries actually kind of come down. So what was initially a no becomes a maybe, and then could even become a yes in the span of an hour.
Because you trust them.
Because you're not the only person that's looking after your boundaries. You're not the only one that is going to be, that is enforcing them. The other person is also enforcing them.
That is fantastic. And what also strikes me is, of course, the difference between this sort of stuff to your later work. So you no longer do erotic massage, but you became certified as a rape crisis counselor because that's a situation where women have had their boundaries violated and now they've got to heal from that. Why did you make that switch?
I was actually doing the work at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. My whole goal has always been to support women in whatever way I can. And so through the erotic massage, I found a way to support women through touch and through affection and intimacy. Through rape crisis counseling, I found a way to support them through their healing process. And just really, I mean, that position, that job is really moving people away from crisis. It doesn't matter what the crisis is. The client is in a crisis state and just needs to not be in that state so that they can continue to live their life. So my work has always been in support of women, and that was just another extension of it. It's actually interesting. I was interviewing for a job at a major tech company in the Bay Area around this whole time, right before I started erotic massage and rape crisis counseling, and I was essentially labeled um, quite possibly maybe going to be a sexual predator because of my charisma in the job interview.
Whoa.
So for a tech company to say, and to be fair, they have had sexual harassment issues in the past, and so they were really risk averse. And so they saw me and they're like, "No, this isn't what I'm into. We're not willing to take on this risk." But an organization that does rape crisis counseling saw my skill set as a benefit and not as a risk. And that was the decision that was the point in which I made the decision to just go full into this line of work, which is supporting people in having a more intimate, loving connection with themselves and with others through the power of communication.
That's so important because you've kind of brought up one of the issues, which is that it's very difficult to see any touch between a man and a woman as not having some sexual overtones. I mean, this is part of how Me Too education is really becoming necessary in all areas of life because we're overcompensating. One of the places I really see this is with little kids. It used to be kindergarten classrooms and things and primary school were full of teachers hugging these little kids. And teachers are much more wary of placing any hand on their student, even if it's just a supportive rub on the back. And of course, that really, I suppose it protects against sexual harassment claims, but it also deprives our little kids of touch. So how can we work with this assumption we're making that all touch is sexual? What's that doing to us, and how can we discern a little bit better?
It's interesting because a few years ago when I moved to Montreal, I had a hard time initiating touch with women in which I didn't want to be sexual, but I still was really lacking physical intimacy. And I found myself in a group of people that are really working with their hands: osteopaths, massage therapists, yoga teachers. And this is a community of people that are used to touching each other in non-sexual ways, and it's actually quite normal. And so I sort of felt, even though I'd had all this experience talking about communication and doing massage, and I still felt like I couldn't initiate or engage in physical contact with someone that wasn't going to lead to sex. And because of that, I started looking at what's going on there and how can I change it. And I actually found cuddle parties in Montreal as a way to sort of explore what platonic non-sexual touch between a man and a woman actually looks like. And it's been incredibly freeing. So I went to some of these events and I learned the tools necessary. And again, it all comes down to communication, to being able to express to somebody, hey, I'd really like to, like, face massage is something that I've always wanted to explore. And I'm just curious if maybe we could spend some time. I can massage your face and then you can massage my face. Was that something that you would be interested in? And I've had these beautiful encounters where people would come to my house, we would have tea, we would massage each other's faces, then we would chat, and then that was the end of the evening. And as long as it's all communicated, then it allows people to really relax into that experience and trust that that's actually all that you're interested in. And it doesn't mean that it can't morph eventually. But if the assumption is that platonic touch is just that, unless we communicate that there might be an intention for something more, then we can engage in it more freely.
I think that's wonderful because I'll never forget being in my 20s and really feeling touch deprived, not being in a relationship, wishing I was in a relationship. And the only way I could get touch was actually to end up having sex with people that I didn't really want to be my boyfriends. But I wanted some sort of physical connection. And that was all that was available. So I want to ask, how can a woman broach this conversation with a man without hurting his feelings? Like, so let's say there's a woman out there who's single, who's feeling touch deprived, who doesn't have a cuddle party near her. How can she approach a man and ask him if they can engage in platonic touch without hurting his feelings that she doesn't want a sexual encounter with him?
It's a good question. I think you have to start off with the assumption that the best way to get your needs met is to ask for them to be met. And one of the things that we learned in the cuddle parties is that it's okay to ask for whatever it is that you want. You also have to trust that the person that's receiving the request has the autonomy to say no. And so in your example, this woman could maybe approach a friend and say, hey, Dan, as you know, I've been single for a few years now, and I'm really lacking in physical intimacy, in touch, and I'm not I'm not looking for anything sexual, but I would really enjoy maybe like sharing massage with you, or like maybe just being close to you while we watch a movie. I think that would make me feel really good. But I also want to be clear that I don't have any intentions of it being more than just that. Is that something that you would be interested in? And couch it that way. And also you have to trust that the person is gonna be able to say whether that's okay with them or not. And if it's not, it's also not our job to protect other people's feelings. So if Dan gets hurt because he was hoping for more, but he feels friend zoned even though he was a friend anyways, then that's part of Dan's work. But also I think it's really important to highlight, to find people that you feel safe doing this with,
Yeah.
because you could maybe lead somebody on. I don't think it's fair to approach someone that has a crush on you and ask them to spoon you for hours platonically and expect them not to maybe hope that there's something else on the backside.
I
So the importance of really finding someone that you can feel safe with, I think, is important to highlight.
So you do love coaching, right? And you've got free love advice Fridays. I think that is on Instagram and things.
Yeah, that's today. I've got a backlog of crazy questions people are really challenging the level of advice that they're looking for on Instagram. I do. I give free love advice on Instagram, and I coach people privately in all matters of the heart: sex, love, romance, dating, emotional intimacy. If you want to have a more loving connection with yourself first, because it starts with yourself. If you can't have a connection with yourself, then you can't really connect in a meaningful way with other people. And so that is the work that I do on a daily basis, is the love coaching and the podcasting, so that I can bring other perspectives into the sphere of the heart.
Fantastic. And for those of you watching, if you want to listen to the Love Drive or get in contact with Shaun yourself, we have a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Shaun. That's yourbrilliance.org/SHAUN. Thank you, Shaun, for coming on to the show. And I wondered if you had any last message you'd like to leave our viewers with.
Yeah, if you're struggling, uh, and you're not where you want to be in your sex, love, dating life, join the club. You are not alone. We are all doing the best we can with what we have. And the importance is to reach out to people that you feel safe reaching out to and get that support that you need to have that more loving connection with yourself and with other people.
Thank you, Shaun. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.